Lane Kiffin.
Lane Kiffin.
Lane Kiffin.
And you name your firstborn son Knox? We really hate Lane Kiffin.
Just prayed a lot and made a family decision, and hopefully get a chance to go, impact a whole new set of people.
If you are familiar with anything college football related, you know who Lane Kiffin is. Lane Kiffin has been called a lot of things: an offensive genius, a shroud recruiter, narcissistic, immature, and controversial. In the world of college football, we have seen plenty of memorable head coaches. Lane Kiffin is memorable for good reasons and not so great reasons. Ever since his first head coaching job with the Oakland Raiders, it appeared that Lane Kiffin was incapable of having a normal exit. Whether he was being fired or leaving for another job, something crazy was always happening. Getting fired by the Raiders and then getting called a liar by Al Davis in a bizarre press conference, leaving Tennessee after one season, causing the fans to riot, getting tarmacked by USC, and most recently, his decision to leave Ole Miss for LSU in the most Lane Kiffin way possible. So yeah, safe to say, Lane Kiffin is an entertaining man. So with all this in mind, this gave me a great idea for a video. In today's video, I decided to make a tier list of all of his coaching departures dating back to his first significant coaching job as an offensive coordinator at USC. This tier list has 3 different tiers: absolute cinema, spicy, and not bad at all. The absolute cinema tier is for the coaching departures / firings that made headlines in the football world. The spicy tier will be for moments that made headlines but not as explosive. And the not bad at all tier will be for the moments that generated 0 negative attention for Lane Kiffin. So with all that being said, let us begin. Lane Kiffin got his start in coaching during his time as a quarterback at Fresno State, where he was the backup quarterback for the majority of his college playing career. In 1997, he gave up his senior season to become a student assistant coach for the Bulldogs. But according to David Carr, Lane Kiffin was mad that Carr, a freshman at the time, was getting more third-team reps over him. So Lane Kiffin responded to this by showing up to practice in shorts and a t-shirt, which pissed off Jeff Tedford and led to this exchange. "Lane, what are you doing?" "Well, I figured I could come out in shorts and a t-shirt because you're just going to give all my reps to Dave." Jeff Tedford, not being amused by this, proceeded to kick him off the field. So after that happened, it appeared that Lane Kiffin quit the team, but Monty Kiffin forbid him from quitting the team. So instead, Kiffin became the assistant wide receiver coach that same day. After graduating from Fresno State in 1998, Kiffin would go on to be a graduate assistant at Colorado State in 1999, and then a defensive quality control coach with the Jaguars in 2000. In 2001, Lane Kiffin would get hired by Pete Carroll as a tight ends coach at USC. For the next 6 years, Kiffin would work his way up from tight ends coach to wide receivers coach, passing game coordinator, and then was promoted to offensive coordinator for the 2005 season after the previous offensive coordinator Norm Chow left to become the OC for the Tennessee Titans. In his first year as offensive coordinator for the Trojans, his offense averaged 49.1 points and 579 yards per game. The Trojans' 2005 offense was the first team to have a 3,000-yard passer, 2 1,000-yard rushers, and a 1,000-yard receiver all on the same team. The 2005 Trojans would go 12-1 that season, with their lone loss being against Texas in the national championship game. In 2006, the Trojans' offense dipped to 30 points per game, but finished top 20 in most offensive categories that season, with 2 1,000-yard receivers, and also made John David Booty a 3,000-yard passer. Yes, his last name is Booty. The Trojans finished the year with an 11-2 record and a win over Michigan in the Rose Bowl. In his 2 seasons as the offensive coordinator, the Trojans had an explosive offense that was breaking records. Additionally, during this time, he served as the recruiting coordinator and helped the Trojans secure the best recruiting class in back-to-back years. Due to all this success as an offensive coordinator and recruiter, Kiffin was being called a young offensive genius and an amazing recruiter, and the college football world was taking notice. Someone else who took notice of this young offensive genius was Raiders owner Al Davis. Lane Kiffin would go on to become the Raiders head coach, and during this time, it wasn't really anything negative about it, so this is going to go in the not bad at all tier. So hopefully this will be the only bad interaction Lane Kiffin and USC has. On January 23, 2007, the Raiders would hire Lane Kiffin to become the new head coach of the Silver and Black. The 31-year-old offensive coordinator would also become, at the time, the youngest head coach in NFL history. Hiring a 31-year-old offensive coordinator with no head coaching experience might be a little risky for an NFL team to take, but to Al Davis, this decision isn't all that strange. Al Davis has been known to hire young, up-and-coming offensive coordinators to become the head coach of the Raiders. He promoted John Madden to head coach in 1969, and also hired Mike Shanahan and John Gruden to become head coaches for the Raiders as well. So if anyone had an eye for discovering young, unproven coaching prospects, it was Al Davis. Al Davis was hoping that this young offensive guru could potentially bring the Raiders back into the glory days, paired alongside the number 1 overall pick, JaMarcus Russell. The Raiders' future looked promising. In an alternate timeline, Lane Kiffin and the Raiders would turn back into a winning franchise with a Super Bowl title and a franchise quarterback. But as we all know, that did not happen. JaMarcus Russell would go on to be a massive bust and be out of the NFL after 3 seasons, and Lane Kiffin would be fired after 2 seasons and a half with a 5-15 record. Kiffin's time with the Raiders would not be remembered for his success, but will always be remembered for the bizarre Al Davis press conference. On September 30th, 2008, Al Davis held a press conference to explain the reason why he fired Lane Kiffin after a 0-4 start to the season, and that press conference was certainly something. During this bizarre press conference, Al Davis called Lane Kiffin, quote, a flat-out liar, said he was guilty of bringing disgrace to the organization, talked about how Lane Kiffin objected to drafting JaMarcus Russell first overall and told him to get over it, and also said Kiffin conned him and everybody as well. Safe to say, this was one of the most bizarre, entertaining press conferences we have ever seen at the time. Al Davis's later years weren't so kind to him or the franchise, but at least we got this moment. For that, I am putting this on the spicy tier. After being fired the way Lane Kiffin was, most people would likely take some time away from coaching for a while, but Lane Kiffin is built different. 61 days later, Lane Kiffin was announced as the new head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers and would be formally introduced as the new head coach on December 1st, 2008, making him the youngest active head coach in the FBS. Kiffin was entering into a pretty tough situation. Not only did he have to win in the tough SEC conference, but he also had to fill the shoes of former head coach Philip Fulmer. The young, brash head coach was going to have to find a way to make a splash, and before the season even started, Lane Kiffin was already making a splash. During a Tennessee Boosters breakfast, Kiffin accused Florida Gators head coach Urban Meyer of violating recruiting rules.
This is a recruiting violation. I'm going to turn Florida in right here in front of you. But as Newkeese was here on campus, his phone keeps ringing. And so one of our coaches is sitting in the meeting with him. He says, "Who's that?" And he looks at the phone and says, "Urban Meyer." Okay? Just so you know, when a recruit's on another campus, you can't call a recruit on another campus. But I love the fact that Urban had to cheat and still didn't get him. It's a great job by Eddie Graham.
Funny enough, someone was violating a rule, and it was not Urban Meyer. Kiffin inadvertently violated an SEC rule that prevented coaches from mentioning a recruit by name. SEC Commissioner Mike Sylvie issued a public reprimand to Kiffin because of the comment, alongside Florida's AD Jeremy Foley, who demanded a public apology. Lane Kiffin would apologize the next day for the comment. The recruit in question was 4-star wide receiver Nikeese Richardson. Although Kiffin was able to get Richardson to flip his commitment from Florida to Tennessee, that came with its own little controversy. Nikeese Richardson is from Pahokee, Florida, a small town located in Palm Beach County, Florida. Despite being proud of getting Richardson to come to Tennessee, Kiffin in the process also managed to insult the town Richardson was from. Kiffin said, quote, "For those of you who haven't been to Pahokee, there ain't much going on. You take that hour drive up from South Florida. There ain't a gas station that works. Nobody's got enough money to even have shoes or a shirt on." Because of these comments, Pahokee's high school principal banned Kiffin and Tennessee assistant coaches from the campus. Believe it or not, this is not the first time Kiffin made comments that insulted a recruit's entire community. When trying to recruit Alshon Jeffrey, Kiffin said to Jeffrey allegedly that he would end up pumping gas for the rest of his life, like all the other players from that state who gone to South Carolina. If I had a nickel for every time Lane Kiffin insulted a recruit's hometown, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot of money, but really funny how that happened twice. The Volunteers would go 7-6 in Kiffin's first season as head coach, including a 37-14 loss in the Chick-fil-A Bowl against Virginia Tech. Despite all the noise in the offseason, Kiffin had a good, strong start to his first year. Hopefully, he can use this season as a stepping stone and build Tennessee into a consistent force in the SEC. Hey, what's this press conference about? After only one season, Lane Kiffin left Tennessee to take the vacant head coaching job at USC, and the Tennessee faithful were not happy about it.
Spray painted the name Lane on the campus rock, along with a variety of other four-letter words.
And you name your firstborn son Knox? We really hate Lane Kiffin.
The crowd set fire to a mattress and a trash can outside the athletic center where Kiffin held his press conference.
Tennessee fans would not forget the day Lane Kiffin bounced on them only after one season. Many years later, when Kiffin would return to Tennessee, they showed just how much they still hated him. For this moment, this is definitely going in the absolute cinema tier. On January 12, 2010, Lane Kiffin was hired to become the new head coach of the USC Trojans to replace his former boss, Pete Carroll, who took the Seahawks head coaching position a day before. In all honesty, this job was probably never going to work out for Kiffin, considering that the Trojans got hit with sanctions, which included a 2-year postseason ban and the loss of 30 scholarships over 3 years, due to Reggie Bush and his family allegedly accepting financial benefits and housing. The sanctions that were given to USC was heavily criticized for how severe they were. If you would like a little more insight into that whole debacle, I suggest you watch the secret base video between Reggie Bush and the NCAA. It's a great watch. Regardless of the sanctions, Lane Kiffin had back-to-back winning seasons in 2010 and 2011, which included a 10-2 season. The 2012 season marked the end of the postseason ban, which meant the Trojans could now compete in the Pac-12 title game and also bowl games. This season also marked the first time Lane Kiffin became a voting member of the USA Today coaches poll, but he resigned after he selected USC as his preseason number 1. This was revealed by USA Today because they cited they needed to protect the poll's integrity, but he resigned after he selected USC as his preseason number 1. USC finished the 2012 season with a 7-6 record and finished the year unranked. The 2013 season started with a win on the road against Hawaii, but in the first home game of the season, the Trojans lost to Washington State 10-7, which included agitated Trojan fans booing the team and chanting, "Fire Kiffin."
And that's Lane Kiffin. You know, we heard a lot of emotion from this crowd. And you look at what's happened here in this last...
USC would win its next 2 big games, but a Week 5 matchup on the road against Arizona State sealed Lane Kiffin's fate. The Trojans lost to the Sun Devils 62-41, and apparently during the third quarter, USC's athletic director Pat Hayden met with USC president Max Nickus, and they came to the decision to fire Kiffin. The next day, as soon as the plane landed back in California, Lane Kiffin was given his walkie papers on the tarmac. This moment would lead to many jokes and memes being made, which included the new phrase tarmacked. But in reality, Kiffin wasn't fired on the tarmac. What actually happened was when the team arrived back in LA at 3 a.m., Kiffin was called off the team bus that was preparing to head back to campus. Kiffin was taken into a small room inside the terminal, where he was told by Hayden that he was being dismissed. If you think getting fired at 3 a.m. sucks, this next part makes it even worse. After the meeting, Pat Hayden would rejoin the team bus that had Kiffin's bags in it, leaving Lane Kiffin behind at the airport. That has got to be the worst sequence of events for Lane Kiffin. Losing on the road to a conference opponent, getting fired at 3 a.m., being left at the airport after getting fired, and now the worst day of your professional life has become a meme. When you get fired and a whole new term gets invented, that's going to get you in the absolute cinema tier. After the tarmacking, Lane Kiffin's career looked to be at a standstill. If he ever wanted to get another chance at being a head coach in the FBS, he needed an opportunity. And thankfully for Lane Kiffin, that opportunity came from a GOAT. Nick Saban invited Lane Kiffin to Tuscaloosa and spent 8 days reviewing the Crimson Tide's offense. Nick Saban's offense was still a ground and pound pro style offense, but that style was starting to become outdated due to the ever-growing change to tempo and spread offense with multiple receivers, which meant the Tide's offense was going to have to change as well. After Doug Nussmeier was hired by Michigan, Lance Kiffin was hired for the vacant offensive coordinator job. The next 3 seasons would see Lane Kiffin turn the offense into something the Crimson Tide has never seen before. Explosive plays and quarterback play you never would have thought you would see out of the Alabama program. 3 straight college football playoff appearances, 2 national championship game appearances, and 1 national title win. This was an amazing 3-year stretch for the Tide and Lane Kiffin. Thanks to his time as the offensive coordinator for the Crimson Tide, Lane Kiffin was hired to become the new head coach at FAU. But since this is Lane Kiffin, this departure didn't come without drama. Days before the national championship game against Clemson, Nick Saban parted ways with Lane Kiffin to avoid distractions. Lane Kiffin will be replaced by his eventual successor Steve Sarkisian, and as for the national title game, Alabama will lose to Clemson 35-31. Lane Kiffin was able to build himself back up again, thanks to his 3-year stint as the offensive coordinator with the Crimson Tide, and was able to get another head coaching job. But despite that, he left Alabama not on his own terms. This departure did make the headlines, but it wasn't as explosive as other recent departures, so this will be going in the spicy tier. In Kiffin's 3 seasons at FAU, he was able to bring 2 Conference USA titles and 2 double-win seasons for the first time in program history, and thanks to this, Kiffin was able to become the new head coach at Ole Miss and left FAU on good terms. So for his time at FAU, this will be going in the not bad at all tier. On December 9th, 2019, Lane Kiffin was officially introduced as the new head coach at Ole Miss. Not only was Lane Kiffin back to coaching in the Power 5, but he was also back to coaching in the SEC. The Rebel faithful was hoping that Kiffin and his offense would be able to get the Rebels to compete in the SEC and even a national title. Outside of the COVID 2020 season, Lane Kiffin and the Rebels were consistently competing in the SEC, and thanks to his offense, not only were quarterbacks flourishing in it, but he also had the Ole Miss offense routinely ranked in the top 5 for 6 straight seasons. The 2025 season was his best season with the Rebels. The team went 11-1, which included a win over 2 top 15 ranked opponents in the conference, but also included a win in the Egg Bowl. The Rebels were a lock for the playoffs, and it looked like the vibes were good in Oxford, but there was a certain job opening that was hanging over the heads of everyone in Oxford. Despite a good start to the season, the LSU Tigers season quickly began to unravel, which included a 49-25 loss at home to Texas A&M. Because of this, Brian Kelly, the most likable coach in the country, was fired. With the LSU job now open, it was rumored that Kiffin was a potential hire for the job. This situation was being dragged out for the rest of the season until the day after the Egg Bowl. Lane Kiffin put out a tweet. After a lot of prayer and time spent with family, I made the difficult decision to accept the head coaching position at LSU. I was hoping to complete a historic 6-season run with this year's team by leading Ole Miss for the playoffs, capitalizing on the team's incredible success and their commitment to finish strong, and investing everything into a playoff run with the guardrails in place to protect the program in any areas of concern. My request to do so was denied by Keith Carter, despite the team also asking him to allow me to keep coaching them so they could better maintain their high level of performance. Unfortunately, that means Friday's Egg Bowl was my last game coaching the Rebels. While I am looking forward to a new start with a unique opportunity at LSU, I will forever cherish the incredible 6 years I spent at Ole Miss and will be rooting hard for the team to complete their mission and bring a championship to Oxford. And just like that, Lane Kiffin was off to LSU, and the Ole Miss fans took this really well. Lane Kiffin's abrupt move to LSU was the full inspiration of this video. His departure was so chaotic, he left his clothes in the driveway, people were exposing him. Juice Kiffin the dog apparently wasn't his dog and it wasn't going to go to LSU with him, but now he is. It was just pure chaos. So obviously this is going in absolute cinema tier without any hesitation for me. Lane Kiffin's LSU tenure is going to go one of 2 ways. 1, he brings a natty back to Death Valley, or 2, he gets fired in Mean-Don again. But whatever happens, one thing is for certain, he is going to keep us entertained. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel as it really helps it out. You can watch another one of my 2 videos on the screen right now as well. But anyway guys, that is all for me. I am One Dubs. Thanks for stopping by.